going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Videohomicide, back with another movie recommendation. This time, we're going back to 1980 to take a look at a film directed by Peter Medak. This film is called The Changeling, and it stars George C. Scott, who just so happened to be in the last fucking movie I reviewed, which was Exorcist 3. The review is on the channel if you want to check that out. That's a good fucking movie. Really good. And one thing about Exorcist 3, just to kind of give a little bit of second thought on that video, I don't know if I mentioned how much I loved Brad Dourif's portrayal as this Gemini killer. Really fucking good. Really spot on. Stole every scene he was in, and really enjoyed Exorcist 3. But if you liked Exorcist 3, you've not seen The Changeling, you'll be happy to know that George C. Scott, the same fucking main character, is in this, and it's awesome. This is a Canadian horror film, haunted house film. Really well done. It's shot beautifully. The music is on point. Direction is great. Obviously, George C. Scott is just as good as he was in anything else I've seen him in. And I gotta say, this movie starts off with quite the traumatic experience for George C. Scott. Basically, him and his family are pushing his car down a snowy road, and it's broken down. They're out of luck, basically. So they get to a phone booth. George C. Scott goes over there to call a mechanic, call a tow truck, whatever, and by chance, a car gets into a collision with a big truck, and the truck fucking kills George C. Scott's family. So now he's renting this big house to work on this. He's actually not a writer, he's a composer. He's a composer of music. So he goes to this big house to do his music thing, and it's only been like a few months. Like, he keeps saying, he's like, yeah, it was 4 months ago. And it's like, dude, you probably, like, you gotta be off your rock. If you see something like that, if you see your whole family murdered in front of you, you might be a little twisted, all right? You might be needing a little fucking vacation in the loony bin for a while, I would imagine. But he ends up renting this big house that's a fucking massive place. I think it used to be an orphanage or something. It's revealed later. But basically, he rents out this house, and almost right away, crazy shit starts happening. He's a piano player, so there's a shot where the piano just plays by itself, one note. And he keeps hearing all these banging noises, which is revealed later on. Spoiler alert. It's the ghost of a kid that died in the house, like, banging on the side of the tub because he was being drowned. And George C. Scott keeps going, I hear this sound for precisely 30 seconds. And it's like, that's how long it took this to drown this kid. And it's crazy. This movie's basically it's, I almost just called it Exorcist film. It's kind of like a house. It's like one of your modern kind of, how do I describe this? Like haunted house. Maybe it kind of developed the formula. I don't know. It's not so much like a Amityville horror, but it has its, all those movies kind of have not a sameness in a bad way, but it has like, okay, they get to the house, shit starts going downhill, they find out a bit of information about the house, and then they use that sort of against it in some way. There's always a kid that got killed that they need to fucking free their spirit. Like, a lot of it maybe stemmed from movies like Changeling, movies like Amityville Horror, and movies all the like from that era. I know there was a lot of TV movies. It would be fucking absolutely impossible to watch every film from the 70s based on TV movies alone. There was some good TV movies back then, man. I feel like the general statement that I like to make on this channel is basically 1970s is to cinema what Babe Ruth is to baseball, and what fucking, Haagen-Dazs is to ice cream. All right? I think that all the best stuff is there. Movies like The Exorcist, movies like Death Wish, Clockwork Orange, Taxi Driver, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course. There's a laundry list of just phenomenal movies from the 70s. Even though this movie's not from the 70s, but it's from 1980. So, like, if you're into this era, you sort of, you can creep into the 80s a little bit with movies, Friday 13th Part 1, all kinds of like that really early 80s stuff, Burning, fucking lots of like Italian stuff came out in like 1980. Like 1980 to 1983, you had some phenomenal stuff. You had some Fulci classics, some Argento classics. It's ridiculous, man. So getting back to The Changeling. So he's at this house. He's getting all these crazy experiences and stuff happening. And like one of my favorite things in films, especially like horror films, haunted house films, is when there's a hidden room. And there's a hidden room in this movie, and I like how he finds it, because he's leaving the place one day, and a red glass window pane, like just one about like yay big, breaks and hits the fucking ground right in front of him. and he goes up there and locates it, but he has to like break through this closet that has like a makeshift shelf in front of it. So he rips the makeshift shelf down, goes upstairs, and that's where there's all like the kid who died there's stuff, a wheelchair, different stuff like that. Like the kid was in a wheelchair, so the father disowned him, and basically what he did was killed his son and like buried him in a well, and then got this other kid, like adopted some kid and sent him to fucking Spain or something, sent him to Europe for a bunch of years, and came back and acted like this was his real son, who ended up being the senator of the state, whatever the fuck that even means. You know, successful guy or whatever. And our main guy, George C. Scott, he tries to contact this guy, and, you know, basically he drops off this recording that he made. Like, even like when I was watching this, I was thinking of other movies like Conjuring 2, when they do that bullshit with the audio recorder. That's different, but this was still sort of like that same idea. Off the head, I can't think of any movies that I've seen before that happened, you know, timeline wise before this, where he plays a recording backwards. I know in Conjuring, like, he plays 2 recordings at the same time or whatever, but it's that same deal, you know, going to show you that these movies had a formula that worked. You know, even like when I think, because when I watched this movie, I kept thinking of Amityville as well, right? Because that's one of my favorite haunted house films, and like, they both work, even though they follow the same kind of story. You know what I'm saying? Minus the kids and all that shit, but really solid flick, The Changeling, man. If you've not seen it, then you're missing out. It's a good one. I already mentioned it was Canadian and stuff, so I'm stoked about that. I'd love to see other Canadian films of this time. I haven't really sought out many, to be honest with you. I've watched a lot of Cronenberg and stuff, but if you got any good recommendations that's not Cronenberg, you know, like The Brood, fucking Videodrome, Shivers, Rabid, I don't know if I said Videodrome, but Scan. Like, I've seen all those, like, sort of main horror films of that era, so really looking forward to checking out some more stuff. Like, we got Shudder now, so I'm probably going to find a couple of good movies on there. I want to kind of keep making these horror movie videos. Not that they don't always have to be horror, but I like making these movie reviews because it's a good way to get these movies out to people. Like, you know, that's just the way the fuck it is, and that's the way it's going to be. So, quick little plug to Cinema 187 right here. All 5 issues are currently in print. If you want to get the Video Nasties issue, Asian fucking special, exploitation issue, issue 1 and 2, and of course issue 3, they're all in print right now. Same with Filthy Ralph Comics, Raise the Dead, sketchbook material zines, Wanted, which is the Rockstar Games zine right here. I haven't really showed this too many times, or maybe I have, but there it is. This has to be remade. The project file got fucked when my hard drive crashed, but it happens. Also on the way, when you order Cinema 187 issue 6, you'll automatically be getting a copy of Filthy Ralph and Little Ricky in Pawn Shop Funnies, which is my latest endeavor. Really fun 24 panel comic book. I put out 4 panels every Sunday, so I still have 3 Sundays to go. And then hopefully I can come up with another idea for Filthy Ralph and Uncle Ricky. Filthy Ralph and Little Ricky to get into. You know, I definitely want to do a Halloween version. So we'll see how that goes. Anyways, I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure you leave a 666 in the comments. Again, to order zines, cinema at cinema.187. And with that being said, adios. And I'm going to go smoke another fucking joint and see what happens.